When we talk about the history of global cricket, the story usually centers around one thing: the men's game. If you ask almost any fan when the World Cup started, they'll point to 1975. That was the year the West Indies men's team lifted the very first global trophy. But that widely accepted starting line is off by 2 full years. The first Cricket World Cup was actually played in 1973, and it was entirely organized and played by women. The fact that an entire global tournament happened first, yet almost vanished from mainstream sports memory, reveals a massive blind spot in how we track athletic history. In the summer of 1973, 7 women's teams arrived in England to compete. As you can see from these players walking onto the pitch in traditional skirts, modern infrastructure and massive sponsorships were completely non-existent. At a time when the sports establishment largely ignored them, these athletes had the sheer nerve to ask why they couldn't have their own world championship, and then went ahead and organized it themselves on a shoestring budget. The event worked. It culminated in England capturing the inaugural title, with their captain lifting a modest silver cup in front of a small but dedicated crowd. Yet, despite proving that women could compete at an elite international level, the broader public largely tuned it out. The sports sections moved on, and the broadcast cameras rarely followed. Securing that physical trophy proved to be the easy part. The actual multi-decade battle for these athletes would be fighting for basic global visibility. Over the next 4 decades, the Women's World Cup survived, gradually improving its format and steadily elevating the quality of play. Looking at this map of championship victories, a clear pattern emerges. The title almost exclusively bounced between 3 established borders: Australia, England, and New Zealand. As we zoom out to look at the rest of the globe, it becomes obvious that while this regional dominance built a fiercely competitive foundation, it kept the women's game contained as a niche interest. Massive populations were left completely unengaged. To break this closed loop and force international broadcasters to pay attention, the sport desperately needed an outside disruptor to crush the party. Specifically, it had to awaken the most passionate, highly populated cricket market on the planet, India. That collision happened during the 2017 World Cup. The tournament operated on an entirely different scale, filling massive stadiums with modern crowds and new stakes. The architects of this shift were the ascendant Indian squad, led by their formidable captain, Mithali Raj. She was backed by a new generation of talent, with players like Smriti Mandhana bringing a high level of aggressive firepower to the crease. That momentum peaked in the semifinals against the powerhouse Australian team. Hरमनप delivered an explosive, unbeaten 171-run masterclass, single-handedly dismantling the world's most dominant squad. A performance like that acted as a battering ram. It forced the massive Indian media machine and millions of domestic fans to stop what they were doing and watch. Suddenly, the Indian team found themselves in the World Cup final, carrying the expectations of a viewership that had swelled by tens of millions overnight. Facing the host nation, England, the match was incredibly tense, coming down to a razor-thin margin in the final overs. In the end, the fairy tale fell just short. India suffered a narrow defeat, and England reclaimed the championship under an explosion of fireworks. While England held the trophy, the response back in India suggested something had shifted. The team returned home to find they had captured the attention of the entire country, effectively ending the era when women's cricket was treated as a secondary concern. By capturing the attention of the world's largest cricket audience, the 2017 Indian squad definitively closed the visibility gap that the original pioneers had opened over 4 decades earlier. Today, the Women's Cricket World Cup commands a new reality. It operates as a premier global broadcast event that demands primetime slots, record-breaking viewership, and massive sponsorships. There is a direct, undeniable line running from the sheer nerve of those original 7 teams competing in skirts right to the modern superstars packing out stadiums. But the most crucial consequence of the 2017 tournament is happening far away from the professional pitches. It provided millions of young girls with a highly visible career path that previously felt out of reach. The legacy of these tournaments extends beyond the trophy case. It gives millions of young girls the certainty that they too can represent their country on the world stage.